Hello.
Hi. How's it going? Come on in. This is my studio.
Right on. I love the lab.
Hi, I'm Scott Froschauer. I like to think I'm a multimedia artist. There's an artist named Laurie Anderson, who some people know her as a musician. She was married to Lou Reed.
I've seen her speak several times. She would tell people.
The only right answer, I'm a multimedia artist, because then you can do anything you want. You can play music, you can make sculpture, you can write poetry, like whatever you want. To me, part of being an artist means not feeling confined. I dropped out of art school. When I was in college, I had a bunch of different majors, but one of them was art. And the reason I dropped out of art school was because I wasn't very good at drawing in class, and there would be somebody sitting next to me with like 3 strokes of they could capture profile of that person sitting over there. I was like, I can't do this. I am not an artist. I eventually got my degree in linguistics, theoretical linguistics, which is linguistic deconstruction, but it's not just about words, it's about systems of symbols. And I think that's something that really kind of plays out in my artwork with the street signs. My degree was about how do you take what's called systems of signification. A stop sign is, you know, a red octagon. It's not just the word stop, red octagon, right? It's a symbol. You don't have to know how to drive. You can be 6 years old and you see a red octagon and you know that that's the stop button. It works at a sublingual level, like prelingual level, to the point that if you are driving and you see a stop sign, it's reflexive. Your foot might go to the brake pedal without your brain processing, oh, I should stop. It's just automatic. So this is a really powerful symbol that one of the reasons it's so powerful is because we just take it for granted. It's invisible to us. We don't imagine that it even exists, but it's like it's so pervasive and it's so deeply embedded in our subconscious that we don't even realize that it's even there.
It's beyond words.
It's beyond words and reflexive. Stop signs can operate reflexively. So that's some subconscious crap going on there. Mm-hmm. So like I'm going to tap into that. I want to open that door. So I'm going to leverage that door open by making a red octagon. I'm going to use the font. I'm going to use the white. I'm going to use all the things. If you squint, your brain might think it's a stop sign. So even the key to start for me is that the ST, right? That's a stop sign until I do that. And I love that it's art. That's the core of the artwork, of this field of artwork for me, is taking systems of signification that are working on us at a subconscious level, tapping into them, and then leveraging that door open and putting in my message.
This is a pretty powerful,
right?
It's pretty true.
Right, yeah. There's nothing to question about it. Well, that's part of it too, right? You only get so much time, you know, on a street sign. Like you can't write a novel on a street sign. So, you know, to me, it's very similar to poetry. I used to write a lot of poetry in college. That was another one of my majors that I dropped out of, and I was a poet. But, you know, poetry is about how do I condense down into very few words some bigger concept. And it's a huge challenge. When you've got a whole page to write a bunch of stuff on, you can convey a whole idea. But how do I convey a whole idea with just one word on one shape? And it's like, okay, a yield sign, but I'm gonna force the yield sign into a heart. And then, you know, but I'm gonna maintain the word yield. So I'm gonna be talking about yielding to love. So you know, English being a core component of that.
You've done this whole series.
Multiple language. I'm working with poets who work in those languages. I am not writing this. And so I have a couple of grad students do it, and then I show it to some other people and have them look at it. I'm not just jumping in thinking I know what I'm doing. I'm working with a group of people who do know what they're doing, and I'm just kind of directing them because it's a simple message that I think does translate. And they might say to me, it doesn't. We have to change some of these things. And so we do.
How many languages have you done them now?
I think I'm at 12: English, French, Spanish, Portuguese. And those 4 are important because those are the languages of the New World. You know, but like if you ask somebody, oh, what do they speak in South America? They'd be like, oh, Spanish. It's like, yeah, well, you know, you're obviously an American because Americans don't even realize that there is Portuguese like in the New World at all. It's a major portion of it. In the American zeitgeist, there's this hierarchy of languages. And so as I do this piece in multiple languages, I have to confront my relationship with each one of these languages. Like I loved doing Japanese. For one thing, like I love doing languages like Arabic and Hebrew and Japanese, where it's like you look at it and it's like it's nothing like we just unless you speak it, you're just like a bunch of pictures, you know, and you're just like I don't even understand it. Like with French or Spanish, you're like, okay, at least there's letters, I can sound it out. And so I think that's one of the fascinating things about doing the project in other languages is like confronting my relationship to those languages, but Japanese specifically, because at the end of our street, this is Latuna Canyon Road, at the end of the street, at the 210, was the Tuna Canyon Detention Center. That's where they held Japanese people during World War II. So what is my relationship as an American with the language Japanese, the people of Japan, and then living in this canyon, knowing that this is a place where they actually held people in a concentration camp because they were Japanese. And these were American citizens. So it's like, come here to be Americans. That's the fun part of doing the different languages, is like confronting my relationship, you know, to those languages.
Oh, sorry.
Never mind. Yeah.
Yeah, we're just...
Yeah.
I like the soar. I like it's all. I mean, it is poetic.
Well, that's the concept. It's a poetic medium because it really confines you to a small amount of space. And then it's also my therapy. Right? Like I wouldn't be the artist I am now if it weren't for going to therapy. So like You Are Enough is this perfect example that like I was on the phone call with a friend and they called me up and they asked me to help them with this problem and I couldn't figure out a solution to the problem. And we got off the phone and I felt really bad that I couldn't help them with the solution. And I was like, what is this feeling I'm having? I'm like, I feel inadequate. Like they thought I could help them and I couldn't, and I just got off the phone feeling so inadequate. And I was like, but wait a sec, I'm adequate. I help a lot of people. I do a lot of stuff. I'm really adequate. And I'm like, hey, there's a thing in there. What is this thing about me being adequate? And I'm like, adequate's a weird word, but what is it? And I'm like, enough. I'm enough. Like, you know what? I do. I try really hard. I try to help my friends. I try to do the best I can. I am enough. I gotta tell myself that.
Holy.
You are enough. I gotta tell myself that. And people are like, oh, what's your inspiration for your artwork? I'm like, 99% of it is stuff I'm telling me. If I'm telling me that, maybe somebody else, it'll resonate with somebody else.
Relate to it.
That's the concept, right? But it's for me. It's a story for me. I don't really hang on to too many of them because for you, I know which ones are good for me, but for you, maybe it's not. I don't know, whatever. Or maybe at this moment.
The subjectivity of art, you can't even explain.
No, you can't try. You can't try. And you can't get bummed out, like if somebody doesn't vibe with it or something.
Getting into the production mode of this must be grand.
The concept is, if you like the idea, you are enough, right? I do large-scale neon pieces for cities. Like City of West Hollywood has 2 of my large-scale neon pieces. They're my signs. They're in neon. They're 10 feet tall. They're in the median of Santa Monica Boulevard. They're massive pieces. Those are really expensive, right? People can't afford that. But somebody relates to the concept. Well, I want to give them an entry point to relate to the concept. So the design is one thing. So here's a sticker that's $4.
Yeah, right.
Right? So here's something, if they like the vibe and they want to engage with it, then there's pins.
And it really does broaden the scope.
That's the idea. Earrings.
Yeah, wow.
I want someone, if they like the concept, and that's what the little signs are about, right? These are these little maquettes, these little models, right? These are, you can't, somebody might not be able to afford this as a full size, or might not have the space.
Yeah.
You know, maybe they're in an apartment, but it's also like they want to give it as a gift, or, you're going to go back home because you can only fit it in your suitcase.
Access.
Yeah, it's access, right? And it's also, you know, how do I relate with the concept? If the concept's good, then there are ways for people to interact with it. I've got that same piece in $4,000. I got it in $400. I got it at $4, and I've got it a whole spectrum in between.
Right.
It's a tricky concept talking about art. Thinking about how a collector will then want to interact with it, and how they can then look at it and instantly understand how it fits into their life. Mm-hmm. This goes on my wall, and I can picture which wall it goes on. I want to buy this. This goes on my mantle or on my desk, right? Like I don't have to put a sign next to it. Go, you could put this on your desk. Like it's clear. Like this is how it works. 2005 Burning Man. There was this moment standing out on the Esplanade one night, and I saw this flower out in the distance. It was this like 40-foot high flower. That looks really cool. I'm gonna check that out tomorrow. And it looks like it's somewhere right off along 2 o'clock. So tomorrow I'm gonna ride my bike out to 2 o'clock and go check that thing out. I look over and I'm like, that flower's over there now. Now I gotta go now, because I don't know where it's gonna be again. Like I can't go see it tomorrow. I'm getting my bike, I gotta go. And I went and checked it out, and it was on a condor, and giant flower on a condor. Like it didn't need a sign next to it saying I'm a giant flower. Right? Like you ride up to it and you're like, holy crap, it's a giant flower, right? And to me, that's a component of art when it doesn't need a plaque to explain it, right? Because there are no plaques at Burning Man. So you're presenting a thing and people are interacting with it without the plaque. So you have to really boil down to like, what am I really saying? These don't need plaques with them. They are what they are. Yeah. Like that's part of the thing, is this concept of like, you know, I provide this artwork that does not need explanation. Now we can talk about it, and I can talk about my degree in symbolic religion, and then how street signs are negative, right? Like no left turn. So my whole concept is, what would happen if you produced a sign that said, do this thing, rather than don't do this thing? And that's how I came up with breathe. That was like my first sign, was just a yellow diamond that just said breathe, because it was like, oh, what would a sign say? Right. Instead of being negative and telling you not to do the bad thing, to tell you do the good thing, breathe. And it's always correct. They're all kind of a growth from that concept of what is the constructive thing to do, rather than don't do the negative thing.
So you've done this all yourself?
Yeah, so these are all my designs. So these are various like implementations of like the bases for them. So like these are all yellow diamonds, you know, so I've got a blank one here. So if I want to just make another, you know, just put some text on. The amazing thing about 3D, it's so precise.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's kind of crazy.
This is your 100%.
Yeah.
Stuff that's in a gallery, there's obviously you're gonna have to split it.
And I do.
This is the essence of a working artist. Right. Making it yourself. Yep. Doing it yourself.
Concept through to production. That's the thing.
That is really great.
That's why also Karl Marx is sitting next to my 3D printers. These are the means of production. That is what the concept is. When he says means of production, he's saying that you can own the whole package. You own the factory. My brain all the way down to the actual factory, and I'm the factory worker. It's also based on this concept of non-scarcity. Like a painting, there's only one. They do one and it's really scarce and it's unique. And then they have to produce another one that's unique, and they're all unique. So they can have higher price points, but my price point can be insanely low, because I do not hold on to this notion that like only 3 people in the world should own this.
True.
This is not an edition of 10. It's an open edition. If you like it, I want you to have it. It's a particular mindset.
You're a geek artist.
That's super important. multiple skill sets. This is something that I also think is really important. The most powerful position to be in as an artist is if you can bridge what I would call the intuitive and the rational. And the intuitive is having this creative idea that just comes out of nowhere. The rational is being able to run a spreadsheet that lets you do a cost analysis to say, what should I charge for these that I can still ship them and make a profit? You need the intuitive and you need the rational. And like, can you get those two to function together and support each other so that in the intuitive process of creating the design, am I also thinking about my price point? Perfect synthesis of something creative and cost effective. Like that's that's a real trick for being an artist.
What's your program?
Well, I use Shaper 3D for my modeling. That's my 3D modeling software. Fully functional on the iPad. I can just sit on the couch. I can make changes or create from scratch. It produces real freaking models that are accurate that can go to a 3D printer. Because I can also do all my laser files. And then what I do is, the crazy shit. Uh-oh. No. That program will produce it and then you can output it to anything. Things that are going to be big and heavy in steel, I can 3D print, make sure it works.
Right. Wondering about, I asked you about your other art.
The thing that I like to think about is when I have an idea, you can think about what medium that idea is going to represent itself in. I've got this crazy idea. What's this crazy idea going to be? So there are hand-poured silver mirrors. And these were all portraits.
And what's the process of it?
So I take sheets of glass, flatbed printing. So it's like how they print billboards.
It's hard to capture.
Yeah, no, it's a mirror. They're impossible to capture. It's one of the things I love about them is you have to see them in real life.
Yeah.
Like they're almost worthless to photograph them.
Yeah, it doesn't.
You can't see. It doesn't
so
read anything.
This was a full line of.
I did a whole gallery
work.
show. I have about 12 of them at this scale and bigger. I have them even bigger than this, and I did them of Stokely Carmichael, the Black Panthers. This is William Kunstler. He's a civil rights attorney. All of these kind of like American icons. How do we see them? Do we see? Because my dad would see somebody who's a Black Panther as a bad guy. Like right. He thinks he's Black Panthers, they were terrorists. So it's like it's this mirror. How does an image, how do you he defended those black kids who raped that woman in Central Park. It's like, no, they didn't. He exonerated them. That's the whole point. But like, what do you see? So they were all these mirrors. So I start with sheets of glass. So I actually hand pour silver on them and lots of chemicals to get the silver to adhere, but it's how you make mirrors. So I hand make my own mirrors. I have this whole rig that I built to like make these sheets of glass into poured mirror. And then I put contaminants in them so they get that like aged look. They get like a prismatic, the rainbows, old mirrors, and like there's different thicknesses. And then I take those mirrors, bring them to a flatbed printer, and then print portraits in black and white on them. So they look like daguerreotypes. They look like wet plate. Like I had one of them at the Framers, and it was laying down on this table when I first got it framed, and this guy walked in, he was like, oh my God, how old is that? I'm like, I made that in my shop last week, and he thought it was from the Civil War, because it was a guy from the Civil War. There was a portrait of him, and he thought it was a Civil War like photograph, because that's how they did photographs, was on these wet plates.
Yeah, so that was a whole line of work that you did.
But yeah, I mean, these were like some of the test ones of that kind of process. But these were, those mirrors. You can see, and it's hard to see the mirrors. It's hard to understand it. But then I was doing these prints on them. This is when I was just fucking around before I actually.
Cool.
Because then they ended up becoming, the work ends up becoming political, that. But when I'm just playing around with it, I'm just, because I was a photographer for years. How am I going to print my photographs in some interesting way? It's got to be something interesting. So I was like, okay, I'm going to print on these mirrors. And that was part of the process. It was like, how do I?
Right. That's really cool.
Yeah. And that's the deteriorated silver.
Cool.
But yeah, I haven't done them since that show. I did a bunch of them for that show.
Sure.
But
but art evolves.
Art evolves.
Somewhat.
It constantly evolves. Well, I'm much more interested in work that is accessible. And those pieces are freaking expensive.
Yeah.
Like they're silver. You know, I want this to be accessible. I want people, if they like the artwork, that they can just go at it. You know those tickets? So those were the thing that I handed out at Burning Man, and now I do them like in the default world. So I hand out these tickets. Your one chance at life, but you must be present to win. And then I started, there's a store in Beverly Hills that sells them with those gold dispensers. I wanted to come up with a better price point for them that was a little more playful. And so I started 3D printing. So this is my new 3D printed, you know, ticket dispenser. It's more like a deli counter kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so this is a new 3D printed. I do a bunch of colors and stuff, these different like textures. Must be present to win. But see, there's a perfect example of English, right? Like there's a double entendre in there in like must be present to win. That it's like, oh, it's a raffle, you must be present to win. But it's like life, you must be present to win. Like you have to understand like the nuance of the language, and without that nuance, like somebody who doesn't, like is not a native English speaker, like or they grew up in Canada maybe, they wouldn't be used to that phrase. So it's like, you have to understand the nuance of like must be present to win is a thing that's like part of raffles, but it's also this double entendre. Like that's, to me, that's a great example of like that piece of art doesn't work on everybody.
No.
Like, yeah, but there's an example, right? So like there's a medium, you know, raffle tickets. It's not painting, it's not drawing, you know? Like I you know, don't want to ever feel confined. Like I want to be able to just make, you know, whatever medium is the appropriate medium for the appropriate thing. So we're laying down layers of yellow. This is also a very fast printer. Like, I don't know if you've seen other printers, but they can be really slow.
Oh yeah.
This thing, when it's going at full speed, and this is not full speed, this is like art quality. So this is still like slower, but it's capable of blazing fast.
Wow, this is a never-ending game.
Like this stuff I'm doing for Palm Springs, totally not a street sign. Sometimes I've got ideas, you know, that aren't street signs. It's great to have this as like a place where I can go have dinner. I'm working on a board game, and I'm like, I think this idea is a board game, and so I'm gonna make that. I don't know how that works. I gotta figure this out, but then that's what keeps it fresh. Learning how something works. So we're done with yellow, we're switching to black. So my background is in union set lighting for commercials, music videos, features, stuff like that. My real ideal job now, and I have that Sprinter van, and it's dialed in interview for a documentary. I've done lots of documentaries. There's a Price of Everything is about art as a business and like the commodification of art. Fantastic documentary, and I worked on that one, you know, and my friend directed it, Nathaniel Kahn. He's got an Academy Award for a movie called My Architect, and they kept giving him money to do other documentaries, and so he did one on the price of everything, and it's art, like all these interviews with like huge collectors and stuff, and like what is their relationship to art?
Art and money have always gone hand in hand.
And what is their relationship to money? And what is art's relationship to money? Like,
rich people are.
I did one on the John Webb Space Telescope, which is like this new space telescope they're sending up like to replace the Hubble. Yeah. And we went to Hawaii to the top of this mountain where there's all these telescopes on top of this mountain, and we got to shoot all these telescopes up there, and you know, like it takes me, you know, weird places. This is, so they're doing the black. The black's kind of interesting, right? Because it's really tiny little stuff writing the words out. Well, and there's more to be done than I have bandwidth to do. Oh, you know, so it's like that. It's like I'm gonna have to choose what's, you know, what do I think is gonna really go somewhere. You know, what do I think tomorrow I'm still gonna be interested in? Because there's plenty of stuff I could start today, but like you know, I'm gonna pick the thing that I'm gonna be interested in tomorrow. So we're done, and then we take the plate out, and then we pop it. pulls off and it comes off easier, but we can get it off now. Pulls off. We got a little breathe sign.
Whoa, breathe.
Right? It's got the little holes in it, so it's ready to go into a post. And then we already have the posts. So we go into our magic little
production zone.
Yeah, and we find our yellow diamond posts. Say YD on them, so we know that they're for yellow diamonds. Let me just take that, and line them up.
Wow, breathe, you breathe.
You breathe. Then we can do a little. Do you have any bases, maybe? Yeah, we can get a little base for it.
Look at that.
It's done. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I'm taking it.
It's awesome.
I think it's great. I think you've segued into a perfect situation.
You know, you take the things that come along, and when it works, you know, double down on it, right? Keep pushing on the stuff that works. You know, to me, it's not only does it like work, you know, technically and like financially, but also that it fits, you know, with your intentions, right? Like, can you find something that, you know, that the meaning aligns with your, you know, your ideals and what you want to say, and it can also work financially, and it gives you know, like I still need the fulfillment of like, you know, working with my hands, or like you said, I'm a geek, so like getting on the computer and just like nerding out, you know, like that's, you know, I get fulfillment from that.
Yeah,
that's a part of it. So it's like this, you know, can it fulfill those different things at the same time? Like that's the dream.
Sexual desires. Nothing is more alluring or potent than the sight of a thigh. Raw skin exuding pheromones. Triggers so deep in animal, man forgets they are married. Fight to the death for a whiff of soft flesh. Abandoned family for another taste of nectar. Craving another and another and another. Conquests were stories, books, movies, hold up to the highest order. Standards where morals rape and abuse of youth's sanctity. Thus feeling is the strongest phenomenon there is. No one is safe from desires of the loins. Sensations no other action can match. Nothing equals an orgasm. Nothing. Societies are driven by it. Fifth Avenue relies on it. Products endorse it. Youth is revered. Old age is left for the wolves. Glorification of innocence, used with precision. Markets minutes for all ages. Believe the story of desire. You're still wanted, you still have it. Only virtue gets drugged and told it was its fault. Lust is a root urge that courses through the forests of humanity like wildfire. Knows no bounds and obeys no rules. It is the insatiable burn that gnaws at the core, driving individuals to seek pleasure at any risk. At its center, lust is a raw elemental force, reaching in the deepest recesses of the human psyche. It is the fiery passion that ignites the flames of desire, consuming all in its path with reckless abandon. It is the whispered temptation that beckons from the shadows, promising ecstasy beyond imagination. Lust is the conductor behind countless acts of passion's depravity through history, the seductive siren that lures even the most virtuous souls into the depths of temptation, leaving them gasping for breath in its wake. It is the intoxicating elixir that clouds judgment and blinds reason, leaving individuals powerless to resist its allure. In the throes of lust, morality and decency become mere obstacles to be overcome in pursuit of pleasure of the senses. It is the frenzied rush of adrenaline that courses through the veins, drowning out the voice of reason with the excited pounding heart. It is the forbidden fruit that's sweeter than honey, yet leaves a bitter aftertaste of guilt and shame. Lust knows no boundaries of age, gender, or social status. It is the great equalizer that reduces even the most noble of individuals to mere slaves of desire's moisture. It is the whispered promise of fulfillment that steers individuals to forsake all else in pursuit of fleeting moments of ecstasy. Yet, for all its power and allure, lust is ultimately a hollow, fleeting pleasure. It is the empty embrace that leaves individuals feeling more lost than received. False promises of forever happiness, leading to despair and disillusionment once again and again and again. In the cold light of truth, lust is the harsh lover who offers no solace or redemption. It is the chrome of sweat reflecting back our darkest desires and most shameful impulses, the lustrous serum corroding souls. Lust's dark aspects of primal desires, temptation forbidden, mocking mind's sanity, following twisted, forsaking one's destiny, for a fleeting taste of flesh, before finding ourselves alone, wondering what is real.
Lunging at my face, he caught my throat and chin with his lower and upper jaws. I was completely taken by surprise. Clamping down on my face and growling, he started to shake and pull away. I could smell and feel his warm, acidic breath puffing in my face.